Good evening. We are doing the Narad Bhakti Sutra. We had covered till Sutra 67, so today we are going to do from Sutra 68 onwards. Well, just a recap of 67. Devotees whose sole single goal is the Lord Himself and whose single pointed devotion towards the Lord is for His own sake are the primary best, the number one. So basically, you are supposed to have devotion only for the Lord and for the sake of devotion only, nothing beyond that. So when we have certain ulterior motives like I want this or I want that, then it is not called devotion. Devotion also should not be that I am doing this. The I should never come. Devotion is only for the sake of devotion. That was what we did yesterday. So today we are going to do Sutra 68, Narad Bhakti Sutra, Sutra 68. When they with throats choked with emotion, body covered with horripilation, and tears flowing down, converse with each other in broken words, they sanctify their family and tribe, nay, the very earth itself, they come to glorify. So there are certain signs given over here. The signs which are mentioned of a devotee. How does a devotee interact? What happens to his body when he is in the throes of devotion, love and devotion for the Lord? The throat gets choked with emotion. Normally, if you have been for a satsang or if you have been for a puja or certain places where you have the kirtans, the bhajans, the devotional songs are being said, you will find that there are a lot of people who get totally so much engrossed in that devotion that they start crying. Their eyes tear up, they are choking, they are not in a position to speak the words. They may say half a word, they may say just a little bit of the beginning. Now, this thing which happens to them is because of the devotion which is overflowing in them. In most of the holy places where true devotees actually visit, worship these kind of places, you will find them completely lost in themselves. They really don't know what they are talking, they're doing. The method in which they are speaking is totally alien to anybody who is looking at them. They'll say, why is this person behaving like this? They may not understand. What does a normal person do? A normal human being will just ensure that he is not doing anything foolish. Is he foolish? So they will go in a queue, they will say the prayers, they will clap properly, they will do the namaskar, they will sing in the proper sequence. These are the things that happens to a person who is a very, very normal human being who has got a shallow kind of a devotion. There's not much of a devotion. But there are certain people who are totally lost it in the devotional path. They are unable to speak. They do not have any way of communication. The person next to them may be completely lost. You may look at that person. Imagine you are looking at this person. He's crying away to glory. The tears are flowing and flowing and flowing. He's trying to sing a song. And there is no way in which the words are coming out of the mouth. That is what he means, throat choked with emotion. Body covered with horripilation. You see, horripilation means, your rongte khade hona, we say. All our hair stand in horripilations. When do they stand? Whenever you are very afraid, or whenever somebody does something suddenly, you feel like that, and suddenly you get the horripilations on your body, at the back of your neck, and a tingle down your spine, they say. In all the horror movies, I'm sure you have seen this happening. When suddenly, the villain is coming or something like that. These horripilations happen as a reaction to the body. Whatever the body is observing, seeing, or experiencing, these horripilations happen. These, whatever the symptoms which are shown over here, are a part and parcel of the normal world also, but here the object is different. You have to understand. There, a normal person will have horripilations when he is watching some horror flick. Here we are talking about when he is completely lost it in God. So, for such a kind of a person, you will have all these symptoms showing up. Now, these are not to be mixed with what happens in the villages. Okay? Because what happens over there is slightly a different phenomena. Those who have gone to the village jatre, you have that village festival, and you have seen that there are some people who literally start dancing, oh, like that, and they start behaving in a very freakish kind of a manner. They are also having their hair standing at end, they have wild eyes, and they are talking something, and people go and ask them some questions. Deliberately, there are people standing over there, they'll say, Mera kya hoga? They want to know all this. That is not to be mixed with this, okay? This is devotional path. And that is not a devotional path. That is called possession. Difference. Possession? You get possessed. So possession is something which happens to what is called as the subtle body. Another entity can possess this person because they are weak-willed characters, weak-willed people. If you know palmistry, you will understand that if the thumb bends backwards fully, okay, like this, going right down, then you know for sure that that is a weak-willed person. But here, it is not a weak-willed person. It is a person intoxicated by devotion. He goes through these different things. The one which we are talking about is horripilations on the body. His eyes are crying. He's just singing, blabbering literally. His hands are, his body is in a throe of emotion which can never be understood. His hairs are standing at end. Sometimes he's dancing, sometimes he's singing, sometimes he's just going around here and there. Now, these are the things that are happening to this person. Horripilations and tears flowing down. I just now said that. The tears start flowing literally. And what do they do? Now remember, we are talking about devotees. Don't mix them around with other people. Alright? Let us assume that there are devotees sitting over there. Imagine there is Tukaram Maharaj or Kabir or Guru Nanak or somebody who is very great, who is giving a kind of a satsang or singing abhangs or saying the prayers or something like that. And when that person is doing that, all this is happening. Meanwhile, they are in the company, all these people are sitting in a company. They are called devotees of that. So what do? They interact with each other. They talk to each other in broken voices. The communication is haphazard. So they converse with each other in broken words. You know, half of the words only are coming out from their mouth. Nobody understands what they are speaking. But the one who is sitting next to them, if he is a great devotee, he is understanding everything. Because he is going through the same thing as this person. There are no two different things that are happening to them. At such point in time, the normal mind is not working. Let me assure you, the normal mind, that means on the material plane, is not working at all. This person is completely lost. A normal mind means what? Oh, suppose you are drinking some juice or water or eating some prasad, something like that. Things like these are happening around them. Sometimes in some places you'll find the phone is ringing. You find somewhere the phone is ringing, and then everybody looks at that person. No, why did you get your phone over here? And in one of the ashrams that I went, the child started crying. It's quite a grown up, but the child started crying literally, and everybody was as if that person is a big gunegar, culprit. Get out from here. Go. One of the sweetest things that I have seen in one of the ashrams that I have got, exactly when things are happening in such a manner, somebody will definitely cough over there, or somebody gets a coughing fit. There is bound to be a person who is going to be distracting, or he will get a hitchkey or a coughing fit or something like that is happening. So in this ashram, before the Guruji comes, they are distributing those small pills that you get. I don't know what they are called, like jintan, very tiny ones, which you keep them in your mouth and so that you don't have that problem when Guruji is there, when the satsang is going on. So it's like that. So think like that. Here everybody is lost in that. There is no common talk happening. Everybody is engrossed in it. In some places, you will find that the excitement is so severe that there are stampedes. Lots of people have lost their lives also. And why that happens can never be told. It's a crazy scene out there when there are lots of these kind of devotees gone out to be one with the divine. So, when these two are talking to each other, coming back to the narrative once again, when these two are talking to each other, they are speaking to each other in half broken words. Nobody understands the other. If there is another person who is listening in, will have no clue what they're speaking. They're just speaking in like that kind of a language. It's a very strange language, okay? And then what happens when they do that? When a devotee is like this, Narada says, they sanctify their family and tribe. Nay, the very earth itself they come to glorify. When a person gets into this kind of a devotion, which is completely mad kind of a devotion, let me tell you that one devotee is going to sanctify his entire family. And this question may arise. This was mentioned in liberation and self-realization. How is it that it is mentioned over here? I will tell you what is written over here. It is mentioned in the scriptures that any person who reaches the state of liberation or self-realization or enlightenment has already liberated himself and 7 generations before him and 7 generations after him. Now think what I am saying. Just a small idea of how this works. Let us go backward. How many set of parents do this one person has? 2, isn't it? One mother and one father. Liberated. Just because this one person is realized, these 2 are liberated out of the system. Now this mother will have her set of parents, isn't it? So 2 over here and 2 over here. The father will also have. So the second generation will be 4. Now the next generation after that. Think about it. And now go 7 generations back. Just because one person is liberated, do you know how many are getting freedom? You do your permutation combination. You may be a science student, mathematics student. You do it and then let me know what is the figure. Because it is quite a big figure. Now, I said backwards. What about forwards? This person who is liberated might be married, might not be married, might be getting married. Really doesn't matter. But the chance is, let us say he is married. Okay. How many generations after him are we talking about? 7 more. Yeah, I can see you doing calculations. Okay. So 7 generations forward. Now 7 generations backward and 7 generations forward. I think we will cover 7.5 billion of people on this earth. I don't know what is the figure, but assuming that it's a massive figure. So self-realization releases a whole load of people. Now, a devotee. Remember, devotional path is easier than the path of Sankhya Yoga or Karma Yoga. It's very, very easy. It's not that you have to put in a lot of efforts over those 2 paths, a lot of efforts. You really have to sweat out. In this path, simple. You just go mad, you become devotee of God and period, finished. ... So, the devotee, he liberates. If this person has this capability of showing that intense devotion, that devotion where he cries at the name of God, just goes gaga, mad literally. Horripilations happen, his eyes are giving off tears. He is dancing away, he is singing, he is doing all kinds of things. This person is equivalent to a person who is liberated in the other path. The devotional path is also the same. But here there is a very peculiar choice. There is no choice in the other path. Okay? There are no choices there. You are liberated, you are finished, gone, out. Okay? In this path, there is no such thing as you are going to get a certificate called liberation. Okay, this person is self-realized, liberated. There's nothing like, there's no self there. No, we are not discussing self here at all. We are talking about the love for God. devotional path. Now imagine in this path, this person is a very, very great devotee of God. He has liberated his entire family backwards and the one forwards also. All right. So now do you understand? They sanctify their family and tribe. The tribe. What tribe are we talking about? Whichever place that he is coming from. You know, we all, or everybody has some native place and some place where we say, oh, all my relatives are staying in this place. All these people are from there. All those people, the entire tribe. And these are not some stupid words. Let me assure you, this is the truth of devotion. The entire tribe, nay, the very earth itself, they come to glorify. They are crossing any place. Now, after this, the next verse is still more beautiful. Let me tell you what it is. So, even if they walk the earth, that place is sanctified. The first time that I ever go to Vrindavan, Mathura, these kind of places, I may not even visit these places inside. Because just by sitting in that place itself is sanctification. I will take a little dust from the earth and I will put it on my head. Because this is the place where Krishna walked, isn't it? So in the same way, we do charan sparsh, we touch the feet of elderly people, isn't it? We do that kind of a thing. Here, just the earth that they walked on. And I will tell you how this is. Let us say, think. Yesterday was, Sunday, Easter Sunday. Now, that entire place where Jesus must have walked is a holy place. Likewise, when people go to, say, Dakshineshwar, the entire grounds of Dakshineshwar, the place where Ramakrishna Paramahansa must have sat, or Shirdi Sai Baba's place. You see, when we go to these kind of locations, what do? We touch something and then we take, we pray to that place, isn't it? Because they have sanctified it. What is the sanctification? I will tell you. So we have finished verse 68. We are moving to the next one. So we are doing Narad Bhakti Sutra, Sutra 69. Like I said, it's a continuation. Sutra 69 from Narad Bhakti Sutra. They sanctify the sacred places of pilgrimage and glory to actions and lend authority to the scriptures. This is something which I will give you a very good explanation what happens there. First is they sanctify the place. Means what do they do? There are pilgrimages. Lots of places are called, places where we go for pilgrimage. In the north, there are lots of them. In the south, there are lots of them. In east and west also. I was talking about Pandharpur in Maharashtra. We are talking of Karnataka. People go to Udupi. They go to various other places here. Some Manjunath Swami is there. All these kind of places are there. Then we go to South India. Kanjivaram, Rameshwaram. Then we go to, say, Balaji in Tirupati. Then in the north, what is the place? Vaishno Devi. I have not been, but I'm just saying. Vaishno Devi is there. The Ganga. Oh, today I'm going to tell you a little story on that. So, yeah, later on. So, it will be a part of this package deal. Okay. So, the Ganga River, Calcutta, various other places. Now, what happens when you have gone over there? Now, think about it. This is what you can actually understand. You have gone over there to those places, and when you went over there, you say, nothing happened. You go over there for a darshan and nothing has happened. You have gone over there to see something, some god somewhere. This is the pilgrimage you have taken. And you were expecting some kind of some miracle to happen, something to fall on your head, some strange experience you are expecting. And nothing happened. We went for the darshan because all your friends are going to ask you, how was your darshan? And you are going to say, it was very nice, That's it. But sometimes you have stories. I have to tell you something. When I gone for the darshan, this happened and that happened. And we were suddenly taken in by the priest. He said, come with me and I will take you straight to the sanctum sanctorum. Oh, stories happen. I met Babaji over there. I met this one over there. I met that one over there. But every now and then it doesn't happen. Once in a blue moon it happens. We are so used to it. You will say, every year we go for this one darshan, in this place. Every year you go, but nothing happens, isn't it? Now I will tell you why this happens and why this doesn't happen. So let me give you a story. This story is of a person who is called Pundalik. Have you heard of this person, Pundalik? We say, Pundalik Avade Hari Vitthal, like that, Pundalik. So Pundalik Maharaj he got married at a young age and he had parents. Now, his wife, she literally was a tyrant in the house and she would make them work very hard, the parents. And she never used to let them go. So till late in the night they had to work. They were old people, but still. So it so happened that one day the parents got so upset about the whole thing and they decided, we don't want to stay here. And they said, we will all go to Kashi. Kashi is a very nice place to go to, so let us go to Kashi. So they left for Kashi. Now in olden times there were no fast trains or anything like that, so you have to walk down, isn't it? Maybe take a horse buggy or maybe a bullock cart or something. You know how many days it may take. Just imagine from Pandharpur, they are staying in Pandharpur, from Pandharpur all the way to Kashi. It's a long distance travel. So then what happened? Next morning, the wife gets up and sees, look, what happened? Where are my parents? Where are your parents, man? Who is going to do the work over here? Go get them. See, find out where they are gone. They come to know that they have gone with one party, to Kashi. It's like, go get them. So this guy says, okay, fine. And he also packs his bag and he also sets on foot. So it so happens that it takes time to reach Kashi for him. And by the time he reaches over there, it's quite late in the evening and he's a little bit tired. So he says, tomorrow morning I'll go and search for them and then maybe, we'll see what happens. So earlier there used to be these ashrams where you can stay. So there is this ashram of a Swami, Swamiji, his name is Kukut Swami. So he goes to the Kukut Swami's ashram and says, can I stay here for the night? So Kukut Swami says, fine, please stay. So he stays over there and he is not able to sleep. So he goes to sleep, and after eating his meal and all that, he is not able to sleep. So he's awake. Early in the morning, he sees that there is Swamiji's kutia is there. So he sees three very badly dressed, dirty clothes and all. Three women, they come inside that place. And they go inside that Swamiji's kutia. And after that, the ashram, whatever the ashram was there, they clean the whole place up. They clean it thoroughly. Naturally, those who have stayed in the ashram will know that it has to be spick and span. So they clean the whole ashram thoroughly. In olden times, we used to use cow dung to cover the earth and all that. So yeah, they do all those kind of things. Then they finally visit the kutia, and then they come out of that place. When they come out of that place, they are literally like, shining. They are shining and white apparel. And they start walking. Now this fellow, he says, I have to follow them. I want to know who they are. So he follows them. They go near the river, Ganga, and they enter the river and they vanish. So he says, oh, these must be some godly people, And so he stands over there and prays, I am so happy to get your darshan and all that. So suddenly those three appear in front of him. And they look at him and they say, you know who we are? Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati. These are three rivers. So what do they do? So he asked them a question. How is it that when you went inside, you had dirty clothes, and when you came out, you had such beautiful clothes and you went inside the river now? So they say, Seva. We were doing Seva of Guru. Kukut Swami is our Guru. We were doing Seva. So when you do Seva of your parents or the Guru, you are sanctified, you are purified. We are rivers. When the Guru puts the foot in the river is sanctified. So did you get it? So Pundalik immediately he gets that, oh my God, is this what I did? So he tries to locate his parents, but he comes to know that they have gone. So he rushes back to his native place. And from that day onwards, he does seva of his parents. It so happens that Krishna and his wife, they visit him, Rukmini. They visit him one day when he's putting his parents to sleep, he's rubbing their feet and putting him to sleep. So there is a knock on the door. Says, come in. So these two come in and they stand over there. So they are trying to speak something. He says, shh, don't talk. My parents are sleeping. And he does complete seva of theirs. He says to them, you stand over there. Go, stand over there. There are pile of bricks over there. So these two, they stand on the bricks. So after he is finished, he turns around to see, and he finds that both Krishna and his beloved, they have become stone. So it came about that that particular place is today called as Pandharpur, and the god is called Vithoba, the one who stands on the brick. Okay? So he feels very sad and he calls out to them and he says, I'm very sorry. I did not know you were here. So Vithoba gives him a darshan. He is also called Vithala, the one who is standing on the eat was the brick. So this is how those images over there in Pandharpur came about. And the promise which Krishna has given is, I am always going to be here. Alright? That is the reason why people visit that place and it has become sanctified. Now, coming back to what happens when a sage, when the devotee goes to a holy place. The holy place, it's literally like, just imagine, it is like your battery. You know, your phone battery. If you go to, say, Tirupati or these places, it's like battery. It's a very big charged battery. Now, every time when somebody goes over there, all the people, a little bit of energy comes down over there. Just think like that. So when that energy comes down, what happens? Who is going to recharge it? You need the current, isn't it? Direct. So this current which is there is the devotee. He has got the power of recharge. So when even Shankaracharya was asked this question, you are God yourself, you know, you are Shankara. Why is it that you have to visit Balaji's temple, Tirupati and all these holy places? Why do you visit? So this is the explanation which he had given. He said the sages, the saints and these devotees are the ones who go and recharge that place. The divinity is recharged. Imagine like that. So I hope you got this answer in this. He says, they sanctify the sacred places of pilgrimage. So did you get that answer? So whenever a great devotee of God visits such holy places, it is not that the holy place is holy because of the God over there. It is sanctified by these devotees who go over there and leave behind their whatever power that is there. I hope you understood this. Now, add glory to their actions, whatever action that they perform. Have you seen Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda's? They put their hand like this. If you have been to these ISKCON temples and all that, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama temples, you have seen their hands are like this. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is also an avatar of Krishna, he sanctified a lot of places. He also visited the entire South India, by the way. He visited Kashi also, Banaras, Kashi, he went up to north, all the way up to Vrindavan, Mathura and came back. And he lived in Puri for many years. Jagannath Puri. Many years he was there. So they sanctified these places, and whatever actions that they do bring a lot of glory to the place also. This much also you have to understand. Then, lend authority to the scriptures. And this is something which I will tell you how it works. You have read a lot of scriptures. Those who are on the path of spirituality, you know, they love to go and read the scriptures from end to end. They want to read even the preface. They want to even go and see who has written on what. Voila, theek hai. I will read that also and that also and that also. Arre boss, there's a lot of reference material. I will read that reference also. And they want to read all the reference material. And nowadays you don't have to read. Nowadays you have to click. You know how click is? There's a hyperlink somewhere and you click that also. And then you go to another website. Then you click that also. Then you go to one more place. So it's like that. You keep on doing. So this is what happens. Now what happens as the story comes down the line? The scriptures and the stories which have come from olden times, there is a very peculiar thing which has happened. You will find that there are skeptics in this world. You know skeptics, how they are? Your scriptures are not good, boss. All dates are wrong. What you are talking million years ago, God was not there during that time and all. They keep on dissecting it. And they say, it's like, remember Mirabai story I told you? Right? Now, Mirabai story, I said Akbar came over there. Right? Now, one more person came over there. It is said that Tansen also came. Tansen is a singer, one of the Navratnas in the court of Akbar. So it is said that Tansen came. But there are people in this world, what do? They go and find out the date. When did Tansen join Akbar? Oh, he joined 20 years later. By then Mirabai was dead. Okay. And they try to find faults in the scriptures. Please remember one thing, when a satsang is going on, a story is going on, all these are written in a particular manner. When the guru or a devotee, he is saying those scriptures or he is expounding on them or he is telling you a story about them, that is the truth. How is that the truth? You will find out. We have to understand, why is it a truth? How many people have trashed the Bible and said there is no Jesus Christ? There are lots of people in this world. They keep on trashing it and they keep on saying there is nothing like that. And there are controversies after controversies after controversies are there. Oh, this never happened, that never happened. These are just stories, don't give me all that. The devotee has a very peculiar place over here. What does a devotee do? He takes the story and weaves a very beautiful garland of it and presents it to someone. Think about it. If there is a great sage, a saint, you may say that lots of the stories which are written have actually not taken place, The skeptical people will definitely say, yeah, that's not correct. Because they are skeptics. A devotee takes the story and weaves a very beautiful garland of story around it and presents it. And that is the truth for other devotees. That is the truth for other devotees. The time which is there, which is in the normal sense goes in a straight line, 1, 2, 3, 4, your watch moves in that manner. The time is actually standing still when the devotee is talking. I myself have experienced this distortion of time. And it was a very, very strange phenomena that I myself went through. I had gone to Dehu Alandi. And the place was closed in the afternoon. So I just went round that place. And in that, there was one small raised ground, which is called Chabutra, we call it. Slightly, maybe a terrace kind of a thing, you can say. So when I went up the terrace of the Samadhi of Jnaneshwar, Sant Jnaneshwar, I found two people sitting in front of each other and having a very nice discussion with each other on the subject matter, which was very esoteric. I just stood there and I watched these people. After some time, I did my namaskar to them and I walked away from there. This was just a couple of years ago. Now, who were those people? One of them was Sant Tukaram and other was Jnaneshwar. Now imagine one person is from one century, another person is from another century, and they are sitting right in front of me and doing this discussion on a very beautiful subject. It's a disconnect for a normal person. He is not going to believe in any of these things. But when I personally experienced it, it was distortion of time. So when we tell the stories that during this particular time when Namdev came and Chokha Mela and this one and that one, so many people were there, they knocked his head, all that story, isn't it? I gave you the story. How can all these saints be together at one place, you may say? Because one is from 13th century, one is from 14th century, one is from 15th century, one is from 16th and 17th, and what are you talking? This is a disconnect. But in the story, this happened. Normal human beings experience time in a different way, in a straight line. Spiritual people experience time in a very, very different manner. It can never be understood how this whole thing happens. It happens in a very, very peculiar fashion. So, what they do is, they lend authority to the scriptures. This is what happens. People may try to, disown or poo-poo them and say a lot of words to these great devotees and say, this never happened, Every story of yours is there. It is there even in Panchatantra. It is there even in your Hindu scriptures. It is there in Jain scriptures. What are you talking? It's not the same. Well, that is how you look at it if you are a non-believer. But if you are a true believer, if you are the bhakt, if you are a true devotee of God, if you are in love with God, then you know whatever is being said is called the gospel truth. Nobody is brainwashing anybody. There is no brainwashing here. There is no distortion of that truth. The truth is different. It is experienced in a much different manner. I will explain it to you in a story which happened to a very dear friend of mine. Now, this particular person, he used to do traveling to the Himalayas. Now, he was a rappler and mountain climber and all that. So, he would go to the mountains. One day, while he was going to the mountains, it so happened that he was waiting at the base camp. Suddenly, one person comes and taps him on the shoulder and he says, "Come with me, sir." And it was a Sadhu Baba, bearded guy. So he goes with him, goes to a long journey, maybe many days pass by, and finally he enters a mountain cave where he meets the Guru over there. And they welcome him and they said, we are welcoming you. They welcome him, they take him inside, and the Guru then gives him a training for more than 3 months. All right? After the training is over, he says, now my person will drop you back, but you are going to forget everything that happened. So this was a training in curative sciences, basically a path of Ayurveda, path of curing people, those kind of things. So the person drops him back to the same place where he had picked him up. And he's standing over there and looking at the mountains. Suddenly he finds his team members calling out to him, "Come on, let's go." Now what had happened over there? This person was standing there on an X date, let us say today's date. He was watching the mountains. Somebody came and took him, came back and dropped him over there. Many months passed by in that journey. But when he stood over here again, It was the same date as today. And he completely forgot what happened. Many years later, when this person was in a coma and he was in a completely, he was dead, literally dead. He was able to revive himself with the techniques that he had learned, with the medicines and stuff that he was able to, and resurrect himself back. So this is a story, but it happened to a very close person whom I know. Then he said, you know what? I had completely forgotten about it. But when I was lying in the coma, this entire story came back to me. And I told my wife what she was supposed to do, and she did exactly all those things. And that is how I resurrected myself. So it's just to tell you how this kind of distortion of time happens in spirituality. You may think it's a story, but there is a living person. So there is no such thing as, So coming back to this, lend authority to scriptures. So in the scriptures, the stories or whatever it might be may have a certain meaning. But when they come from the mouth of a devotee, when they come from the Guru's mouth, or when there is an exposition happening by a very great person, an enlightened kind of a being, then the truth is different. So whatever they say, it is giving authority to the scriptures. Any of the persons in this world, those who are literally doing the translations, literal translations, who are supposed to be scholars, have got university degrees, they might have gone to Harvard, and they might have done all kinds of big degrees, and they are trying to dissect a scripture. That is not the truth, because they are trying to dissect something completely different, whereas a devotee's words are the genuine truth. So Narada is clearly telling you how the devotee, when he says these words, that is the truth. So we have come to the end of Sutra 69. Next time we will do Sutra 70 onwards. Yes, I have received a few people who have sent me, telling me that we can continue in some manner. So you can also write, like I said, please do write to me and tell me what is it that you are expecting, because we are like at 70 verse. And very slowly we are going towards the end of this book. So what do you want me to do? Please let me know.